This young man, I don't know about what basically I am Ben. For the past 15 years, my love friends. I know his surname. I don't need magic to tell you that his surname is Oswago because all of my memory. That is one of the functions of the human brain. The other function of the human brain is to think logically and to solve critical problems. Now, Ndioche design an educational system which fits our memory but does not train our minds to think logically and to solve critical problems. Consequently, all the exams, O level, advanced level, a test of our memory. For instance, la ABC1 or ABC2 give exam in those days. Make sure you don't bring your handout inside the examination hall. Make sure you don't bring your textbook inside the examination hall. I'm going to put the function of the textbook and the handout inside the examination hall. One thing, to judge your memory, to make you remember what you have forgotten. And all our exams, what are the characteristics of money? What are the qualities of a good money? I guess log the homogeneous. I guess log the portable. I guess log the durable. All these things are functions of memory. We are only retrieving what is stored in our memory. That kind of education does not foster development. That kind of education does not give us an edge over our contemporaries in the outside world. Now, I'm one of the two Abians who were opportune to attend the United Nations training in Abuja, Lagos, and also as Uyo here. I got long training, 40 hours training, 8 hours per day. We were trained by one of the best consultants. He consults for nations. I am not training before the training. Manual training. La Valencia Hotels Abuja. Amateur training. We had an exam because our exams in UK. I'm here. We are here. The lead trainer asianye. I am battle examination. Mani were manual ayanje kuzirani hebi ale examani. Make here he. They are who the good kembu. Nganambo even common amokrekere. Even a problem. So we wrote our examinations with our examination manuals inside the examination hall. Now why? I asked myself why. The truth is that when we train our students, when we train our will-be politicians, we train them to store information in our memory. And during the exam, we test their memory to see how good their memory was or is. These white people were not testing our memory. They were testing to know if we can think logically, if we can use the models they bring to us to solve critical problems. Consequently, a lot of people who also wrote the exam with their examination manual also failed the examination. Now you find out that if the man, the politician, the graduate is able to think critically, then he will be able to solve certain problems in the society. Okay. Elem, the great Elem, who was one of my mentors, I've written 3 books and I dedicated 2 to him. Elem told me in one of his classes, also there are 3 stages that a nation or a people will pass through before we call them developed. Yes, the number 1, that they have to pass through what we call the superstitious stage, where they say that God controls everything, that faith controls everything. You're a man earning less than 100,000, you have 4 children, and the 5th, your wife is pregnant with the 5th child. You must be very, very stupid. But you say, oh, when your children are crying in the night, yes, God didn't impregnate your wife. You have to bring your logic to bear based on the resources you have to train these children if you want to train them well. That is the reality. Now, he said that the first stage is superstitious age, where we pass that stage. You go into the stage of metaphysics, where we begin to look at cause and effects, why these things happen in our world. Lord, we got a child that stage. That the third stage you gave along with the scientific stage, where you use theories, where you use exercise to produce things, where you use technology to produce things to advance society. Yes, and unfortunately, Nigeria is still in the superstitious stage. But however, there's also a silver lining to every cloud. Okay? That's the good thing about that. One of my lecturers once woke up. He asked him, yes, but the problem is that yes, every country in Britain Germany will away, Africa, Ghana will away. Yeah, see, but the irony of the whole thing involved, Lord to in the Java visa. Aga America. What about the American day Java visa or Colamo Aga Nigeria? Say agree me one. Yeah, see, lay electric chair. Nda shock on the mad lototo. Shock call. The lay were tuli ada wasalala. Ye uroko biagaya. The lay were that camera between 4 every morning. So ma say agree me one never into that rush here look Nigeria. Yeah, see, time what bezo. Lo onye le ja pay la here look Nigeria. Lo bo se mo sabat. Lo ja bia mbobla osoya. Yes, no anybody should rush hell Nigeria. Yes, Masia Okute Ntiliban Onoya. Yes, Mama for her. Loyally just apply Ntulila hell in Nigeria. Lobo a contract of the federal government. Never da I head. Actually, as electric share, but only la Nigeria head. Yes, Mama, Lobo power. So every cloud has a silver lining. However, in the training, when the white man was done training us, yeah, join in the hall. Yeah, see, in the exam, what at 8%. How do you feel? You made a product, you win 98% accuracy. How do you feel? And I say, hey, nigga, you win 90 A plus. Thank you. A plus. The man I have one and you retire cool down. Yes, let me tell you what 98% means, and let me tell you that what that 2% error of margin of error means. Yes, yani. In US, anyway up to 10,000 bets every day, 10,000 plus in US. Yes, at the rate of 98% accuracy and 2% rate of error, like with 200 babies that will die every day as a result of midwife's error, medical error. 200 every day. Yes, is that acceptable? Yes, no. Yes, yani. Do you know? Yes, McDonald's produces up to 5.4 million burgers every day across US. Yes, at 2% rate of error. That means otherwise 100,000 contaminated burgers every day in US. Yes, is that acceptable? The man blew our mind. Yes, the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority of US, controls about 45,000 flights every day across US. 45,000. Yes, at the rate of 98% accuracy and 2% rate of error. That means we'll be having 900 plane crashes every day in US. Now I was shocked. Our mentality in 98 in the OK, but they don't think 98. They think science, they think logic, they think accuracy, they think exact science. Let me also tell you, when you think about science, you think about plan A, plan B, plan C. When they wanted to kill Osama bin Laden, the SEAL team that killed Osama bin Laden, I watched the live feed. When they got there, they had plan A, plan B, plan C. When they got there, they went with 3 Apache helicopters. The 3rd helicopter malfunctioned. Their plan A failed. They switched to plan B. That is how a society that is planned works. Remember I said, that Apadora said, that the state exists for the sake of good life, for the sake of life, and continue to exist for the sake of what? In the better life. What is the problem with us? The problem is that we are not trained properly. The problem is that we think backward, we are still superstitious. Now, I ask you, what is the land mass of Nigeria? We have 923 kilometers square, million kilometers square, 923,000 kilometers square. What is our population? We are up to 200 and something million in Nigeria. Now, let me ask you this.
Estimated.
Do you know, yes, do you know the population of just one state in US? A state like California has a population of about 39 million. Their land mass is 423. And now, what is their GDP? What they contribute to the global GDP is 4.2 trillion. La land mass and la population, and we have only 100 and something billion US dollars. That shows that their rate of development is quite far from ours. That same state of California has more GDP than the whole Africa combined together. The whole African GDP is about 3.1 trillion with 30 million, landmass, 30 million landmass, and a population of 1.5 billion. Yet, a state in Texas alone outweighs us. What is the problem? We have not come to the point where we use logic, where we use science to make sure that we develop. Now, when we talk about education, we talk about training the mind to think logically and the willpower to act in the benefit of the suffering majority. What time I been no go. Okay, I go give somebody 5 million. See I support on the wrong. I say like guy now. Why? Because up line again law para. But a man should have the moral courage to say no when he needs to say no. A man should have the moral courage to do the right thing for the suffering what? Majority. That is how we will foster what? Development. As a matter of fact, in recent times, I made a proposition and I said that if we teach our children to read or to act with logic, it will, enhance our ability to get developed. And as I'm talking to you today, I believe that O'Brien Bidomwa things according to logic. Even God who created the world with logic. He gave at the book of Genesis. Also, like they can pose okay or similar before you can answer. I will look at answer before you go similar. As the men but God in His wisdom, if you look at the distance between the sun and the earth, about 147 million, miles. All that 10% closer to the sun, all that 10% away from the sun, everybody will freeze to death. So I posit today that if I read the president's speech, let's see the way forward. The way forward, I think that revolution, I just say Tinubu and leave here. But we can train our children. I recorded Matthew's comments where he said we can teach and mentor the upcoming generation so that they will begin to toe the path of science, so that they will begin to toe the path of logic. With that logic, I believe that we will foster development in Alangwa, like Nigeria as a whole.